What goes up eventually comes down. Between the USA and Canada, some 29 million tons of emissions every year. You dump the garbage on us, and we dump it on you. Millions of Americans and Canadians are concerned and believe that SO2 emissions and NOx must be reduced. To say we need more scientific research is an excuse for non-action.
Our Canadian neighbors to the north are becoming impatient to a point where U.S.-Canada relations are more strained than ever. At the center of this irritant is the acid rain problem, one that has no respect for international boundaries. Acid rain occurs when sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide react with water vapor and oxygen in the atmosphere to become nitric and sulfuric acid. They return to Earth as precipitation, rain, snow, sleet, and even fog. The sulfur dioxide, or SO2, is emitted from towering smokestacks of utility plants, oil refineries, and smelters burning fossil fuels such as coal and oil. Nitrogen oxide, or NOx, is emitted from the exhaust pipes of millions of automobiles and trucks. These emissions remain aloft for many days and travel hundreds of miles. Upon returning to Earth as nitric and sulfuric acids, they kill aquatic life, whole bodies of water, and cause damage to forests, crops, buildings, and monuments. They may produce respiratory and other internal disease in humans. Although American lakes have been affected by pollutants produced in Canada, scientists report that 80% of the sulfur pollution in North America is generated in our Ohio Valley. In the province of Ontario, more than 50,000 freshwater lakes are threatened by acid rain, with 150 of them already dead, resulting in $5 billion in environmental damage annually. Canada has been seeking a bilateral agreement with the United States to cut its sulfur dioxide emissions from industries on both sides of the border in half. However, the U.S. administration has said there is no sufficient evidence at this time to justify such an action, and Canada is outraged. Environmental ministers of 9 European countries and Canada met in Ottawa for 2 days in March of 1984 for the first international conference on acid rain to be held in North America. It was hosted by Canada's Environment Minister, Charles Cotcha.
It's important that the millions of Americans who feel the same way as we do and who can see the potential damage to their economy as we see it to ours, combine efforts and decide to move jointly in combating acid rain.
The ministers unanimously agreed to reduce polluting sulfur emissions by 30% within the next 10 years. However, Canada went one step further. Ontario Province Minister of Environment Andrew Brandt explains.
Well, Canada's made a commitment for a 50% reduction in acid rain, which exceeds the 30% that has been committed by the European industrial nations. And we're doing that, quite frankly, because the cost of not taking action at this time is going to be even more expensive in the future, and we need very desperately to have the assistance and the cooperation of the United States in this whole endeavor. Without them, the program simply will not work.
The United States doesn't have an acid rain program and was conspicuously absent from the table. However, a special guest was Fitzhugh Green, Associate Administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
We are trying very hard to come to a consensus. And so far, the consensus is that it's not possible to get the country together for further reductions, although we, of course, have a strong reduction program under the Clean Air Act.
Another American guest, David Hawkins, policy chairman of the National Clean Air Coalition, focused on the political aspect of the acid rain problem.
Most countries in the West with industrialized pollution problem recognize not only that acid rain is a problem that exists, but they recognize that they know enough as political institutions to do something about it. The United States, in terms of the technical civil servants, realizes that also. What we have is a political decision not to take action at this point.
A week later, Minister Katya traveled to Toronto to deliver a strongly worded message to representatives of the American Public Power Association.
It makes me wonder what it will take before the administration in Washington realizes that a crime is being committed against our environment, south and north of the border. If it is a corpus delicti that they want, we can show them thousands of dead bodies of water throughout eastern Canada and the United States. If they want to see a smoking gun, we can show them scores of billowing smokestacks across the continent.
How about International Nickel in Sudbury, Ontario, INCO? Is it still the largest emitter of sulfur dioxide in the continent?
Yes, it is.
And will they be forced to reduce to your 50%?
They have already been forced to reduce from some 4,000 tons to something like 1,900 tons now.
Where do you feel the greatest threat of acid rain is coming from?
In quantities, it comes, of course, from states like Illinois and Indiana, the industrial states south of the border.
Our Ohio Valley in the United States,
Yes.
apparently. The United States feels that there is not enough scientific evidence to back up your theory that most of the transboundary pollution is coming from the United States.
Well, we reject that conclusion because the groups, American and Canadians, that conducted their studies in the early 80s concluded in a scientific and final way that there is a cause and effect. At this stage in Washington, the problem is one of political indecision and not of scientific lack of knowledge. Because of the announcement by President Reagan last February, the memorandum of intent is there as a piece of paper that has potential, but right now it is resting and collecting dust.
How adamant are you against the United States in this issue?
The position that we take is that we want to convince the administration. We know that millions of Americans think like we do, that we have an issue in common, and that we have a problem in common. And as I just said, even if Canada were to close down tomorrow all our industrial and utilities establishments, that we would still receive massive and damaging emissions from the US. So what we are doing now is we are, through our actions, trying to demonstrate to the US administration that we are serious about it.